I became very frustrated and angry. Not like to where anyone would ever see it or notice it, but internally,
Yeah.
I was frustrated and mad. And I think that was the first time that I recognized that, oh, wow, I'm blaming this guy for my, lack of growth and not continuing. And at that moment, I thought, well, what the fuck is to keep me from becoming as smart, as good as the CEO of this company?
You're listening to the Kristof Lewis Podcast, a podcast where I have conversations with inspirational people. My name is Chris, but my family calls me Kristof. My goal is to have as many conversations as possible with people who have forged their own path by pursuing their dreams, making them a reality, all the while emitting positivity and sharing this knowledge with others. I seek these people out and share this information with you, proving to the world that you can do what makes you happy and do what you want for a living while being a good human being. We'll talk about careers, but we'll also cover any story that inspires. Let's do this while helping each other. Thanks for listening. I'm happy you're here. What's up, guys? Welcome to conversation number 55 of the Kristof Lewis Podcast. I am the one and only Kristof Lewis. I'm just playing. I'm just in a good mood. I had a great conversation with our guest today. He is the true one and only, the great Adam Schafer from Mind Pump. Adam was great to talk to. We got really deep, and I wanted to learn about his background and how he kind of transitioned to everything that he's doing now. We talked a lot about parenting, as he's going to be a parent this summer as well, and as I have a 1.5-month-old baby girl. So we had a lot of similarities there, but like I said, I really wanted to dive into kind of what formed his mindset and how he became the man that he did today and become such a successful entrepreneur and just a good human being that helps other people. I really enjoyed this conversation. There's a lot of value here, and if you stay to the end, I guarantee you will walk away learning so much more than when you came here to listen. So thank you so much for being here. I truly appreciate you guys listening. I did release a reading list a couple weeks ago. You should check it out. It's on the website, kristoflewis.com. Just click on free content. I made it easy. Enter your name and email, and boom, I will send you my first and only reading list. Really excited for that too. So without further ado, welcome to the Kristof Lewis Podcast.
Right on, man. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. I've really enjoyed my time talking to you off camera. We get some things set up last minute there, and I just really appreciate you guys flexing to have you on here. I know it's not always easy for two people to sync up at the same time, so I do really appreciate that. And I know this is the first time we spoke in person, so I do want to say right off the bat, I saw that you're going to have a child come in August.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Maximus.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, Maximus. First of all, that's a badass name. Second of all, it super just aligned with me right now. We have a 1-month-old right now. So that super resonates with me, and I'm just extremely stoked for you right now.
Yeah, thanks, dude. I mean, it was cool to talk to you off air and find out actually how you came on to Mind Pump. Most of the interviews that I do are actually people that have been longtime listeners of Mind Pump and that they want to interview one of us, on their show or whatever. So to hear the way you came in is pretty interesting. So I'm excited to chat with you, man.
Yeah, absolutely. So for all the listeners, we'll get back into that because I think that's really important. I want to talk about social media a little bit too, just because I think that you just crush it. And that's actually why I wanted to have you on, well, amongst all the other reasons that I like to cover. But one of the ways that I found you is your Instagram stories. I'm a huge advocate of that. I try to utilize it a lot myself, but man, and I described that. I was like, you put out like 5,000 stories because somebody asks you a question and it just goes on. You literally probably, I don't know, it's probably got to be like 100 in a row. And the thing for all the listeners, if you're not familiar with Adam, he puts out really, like, people will answer or ask anything. You'll answer everything, and it's everything under the sun, and it's super informative. And I've done my due diligence on, like, at first I was like, I didn't know you. I was like, who is this guy answering like everything under the sun? And I did my due diligence on a couple of the questions and answers, and I was like, dude, this is fire. This totally aligns with me. And so that's how I actually learned about you, not through your huge and, should I say, very successful Mind Pump podcast, but through your stories on Instagram.
It's freaking awesome, actually, to talk to somebody. I had no idea that was coming when you said that. And it's only been about, I know we were trying to guess off air the exact amount of time. it's probably been about 6 months or so that I've been doing that. And one of the things that we're always trying to do is we're always trying to revisit our why of why we got into this. One of the hardest things to do at this point where the business is at is actually to not do things. We're constantly being bombarded with opportunities or ways to make money or events that we can go to or speak at or yada, yada, yada. And so, I'm always trying to find ways that what grew this thing to the size it was, which was our why, which was try to fundamentally change the fitness industry for the better. And by impacting it in a way where we are just providing so much valuable, free, good content. And, sometimes we get distracted from that and I get busy and shit with normal building a business stuff.
Yeah.
And so that was an experiment that I've been doing for about the last 6 months because I was like, okay, I got to a point where I could no longer answer all my DMs. So something that Sal, Justin, and I, we all pride ourselves on with the business is that we answer all of our DMs. You DM questions about fitness-related health. Anything that we touch on the show, we basically talk to our audience and we answer. But, I knew this time would come eventually where, which is an awesome place to be in business, where I get that many inquiries every single day that I literally, even if I answered all day long, I couldn't get to all of them.
Yeah.
And so, this thing that I started 6 months ago was during this time. So it was right around there where it was starting to get to a point, and I was sharing this with the guys. I was like, hey, I'm actually not able to get to all my DMs now. This is getting kind of crazy. Because it started to get to the point where I'm spending 3-4 hours a day responding, and it's like that's taking away from scaling the rest of Mind Pump, which in turn is going to affect tens of thousands of people. And it's just not the wisest place for me to spend time. So I go, okay, well, I know that stories are getting the most views and traction on our platform, and out comes this new thing. And I think it had been out for a little while. I hadn't used it. I'd only seen maybe one other person utilize it. And I saw the function like, okay, I can just post up, ask me a question. And then I love what was so brilliant about it is the way it feeds it to me. It actually segments it from all the rest of my DMs. So it doesn't just over clutter my DMs.
Sure.
It segments it for me. So understanding where I'm at, where I can't get to everyone's DMs, I can't. Who should I ask first or answer first, or which one's a better question that I should spend my time on versus another? It's like, fuck, I can't do that anymore. So how can I organize this and plan this? So that I've scheduled now these blocks, and I do it once a week, where I block off about 4 hours in my day because it literally takes that long.
I can't imagine.
And I go, okay, I'm just going to fucking rapid fire. I'm going to take as many as I can get done in this 4 hour block. And that's exactly how it goes down. And I never get to all of them, but I do get I get a lot of them.
You do.
I try now a lot of them and give back. And I also try and be authentic to who I am. This is what's great about this whole story of talking to you right now, because I think about my responses. Of course, I say them pretty fast, but I most certainly think about, I want somebody who's never met me before to just be able to read my stories and kind of get who I am, my personality.
I would 100% say that's true. Like, I got to know you through that, not your podcast, which, I've told you, I've only listened to not more than a handful, and it was Instagram. Like, I was trying to network with like-minded individuals for my podcast. I came across your podcast in that sense, hadn't even got to listening to it yet, and then saw those stories, and you're exactly right in how you've described it. Like, because of your mass amounts, your sheer volume of answers there, and all those questions and you answered it like authentically, right? And I think that's very important for just standing out in a crowd that's completely saturated in social media. So when you were answering those authentically, I 100% was like, I know this dude. Like, that, it was that simple for me.
Well, and that there's some challenges to that too. I think that I by no means have mastered this, and I
Sure.
talk about this on the podcast all the time about being authentic and being radically honest. Like, I think that it's a practice that you never stop, and you're trying to push yourself in that direction always to be more and more honest, and when it's the hardest. And so many times I'll get stuff and I'm like, oh man, I'm going to answer this. I know I've got friends in the space that they do this, they do that, and it's like it's gonna kind of sting, but it's also the truth, and I can't. So I'm like, I'm not gonna hold back because I might hurt somebody's feelings who I know,
Absolutely.
and maybe I like them as a person, but I don't agree with the way they've built their business or how they monetize. But that's just me, and to each their own.
Yeah.
But I'd be real with how I feel.
Yeah, I think if you have that authenticity as well as you firmly believe and you stand behind what you say and you're delivering the truth, then I think that you're good to go. And I do see that. And there's always going to be somebody out there that's not really subscribing to what you say, but I think that's just the nature of the beast when you're reaching so many people, which you obviously are. I'm curious, like going back to you having a child coming, I have a child here. One of the toughest things, I told you, I've been doing a podcast for over a year now. I doubled my podcast right around when I had a kid. So I think I'm psycho, but I'm curious from your mindset, from being an entrepreneur as well as hugely involved in the fitness world, how do you kind of foresee your time management? Like right now, it's got to be crazy. I can only imagine. Like you were saying, you spend so much time like DMs initially, and then you're doing questions, and then after having a kid, I mean, do you like have? And I'm gonna tell you right now, it's harder. It's a lot harder, and I couldn't really plan for it. But do you have like any kind of like game plan at all?
100%, man. I didn't wait to be almost 38 years old and not think about this.
Sure.
Something that not a lot of people know is that I'm the oldest of five, and the separation of age of the two youngest, my little brother Sarah, or my little brother Larry, and Sarah, my little sister, they have like 15-year gap difference between me, like 13 and 15.
Oh wow.
And so, my mom was always struggling to get by, and same thing for my stepdad. So they were always hustling to work, and we were always watching the kids at a very early age. So, I got a lot of practice at a very young age to raising a kid.
Yeah.
And so
that makes a lot of sense.
Have this, and I have my two best friends, and they just had one's got a 1-year-old now, and the other one's got a 6-month-old, and I'm watching them, and they did not grow up that way. Now we go all the way back to elementary school as friends, and it's interesting to watch them navigate this whole process. And I could see how I see that, and one friend's kind of in the middle. There's like the three of us represent a spectrum. I would say I'm extremely comfortable with it, excited for it, and I know what I'm in for. And then I see the other end of the spectrum is probably my one of my friends who looks like he just got fucking hit with a tornado. It's my other buddy that's kind of like, okay, it's fucking crazy, but I'm riding the wave.
Yeah, that's what it feels like.
Right. You probably are like my boy Justin. Like that's it. That's him right now. He's like he's got and he's doing he's a fucking incredible father. Both of them are incredible fathers, but I can see the how it's affected them.
Yeah.
I'm on the other hand. The reason why I waited until the age I am is because I fucking knew, man. I saw what it did. I saw how heavy it was for my mom to raise that many kids, especially the pressure if finances weren't in line, like what it did to my family and how it tore everyone apart. And so I seen a lot of things from that pressure and that stress and how hard that would be. So, you could say that a good reason why I waited as long as I did was because I wanted to make sure I had all my shit together and I was ready to take on a responsibility like that and to live my life for somebody else and not myself. Because up until this point, I can honestly, openly say that I have selfishly lived for 37 years. I mean, all about me, nobody else, all about me. Like it's been about me for that. And I know a lot of that's driven because I felt like I didn't get everything I wanted as a kid growing up, and I had a challenging childhood. And so I think that I overcompensated for the majority of my 20s and early 30s with, take care of me, spoil me, selfish me. And then it got to a point where you realize that that's a never-ending hole that you never fill.
Yeah.
Right. And now I'm in a place where I want to live my life for my partner and for my child, and I've worked my ass off to put myself in a position financially that gives my wife the option to come and work or not work.
Yeah.
She has that option to be a full-time parent if she wants, or she can do part-time, or she can go back to work. We can afford any one of those angles that she desires. So that makes me happy that she has that option to do that. I waited until I had grown, been wise enough. I'm already starting to Katrina, I went and bought her 2 new vehicles. And it was to replace the 2 old ones that we had. We had 2 vehicles that were at 150,000 miles, and that's what her and I normally drive. Whew. And like right away after the kid happened, like all of a sudden, like Papa Bear and me already start that.
Dude, I get it, man. I get it.
I had this nightmare of like, oh my God, you're going to be on the road with my baby and car breakdown. And it's like, all I had to do was go down and get you a new one. We should have done it. Like, so I've done shit like that. I've now started to work out in the morning time. Like I hate working out in the morning,
Dude.
But I also recognize how challenging it's going to be for me to
very alike. I'll tell you, I switched. We bought a new vehicle for my wife. And I also started working out in the morning, which I hate. I told you I was in the military. I had to do that mandatorily for 9 years. And so I was like, I got out and I was like, I'm going to do the afternoons. I was doing the afternoons and I was like, all right, I got a kid now. Like, how I got to reorg my time now. So I'm just telling you, like, now that I've been doing it for just over a month, like, that's working for me. That's the only time I can get it in is when I do it in the morning. And the new vehicle, same mindset. Like, I'm laughing over here as you're talking because I hear, like, I envision this, like, oh my God, if something happens, like, she has a tiny car, like, we have to get her a bigger car.
I've been anticipating all of this. And, I notice myself, like, just each month I tighten up all the reins, even the way I am financially. Like, normally I never question what Katrina's buying or doing and stuff like that. And, I find myself asking that, not because I'm this controlling husband or some shit, but because, now we're thinking about our child's future and the what's the costs that we're going to be having in the next 6 months. And so, I can see myself already, they call this the nesting phase for the men or whatever, right? That's what I'm doing. And I see it, but a lot of it is just because I've seen it, I've been around it enough. I grew up at a very young age already having to help raise a kid. So I think that, I'm definitely ready. And everyone says, and I know this, like, no matter how ready you are, it'll be different or it won't be. I'm like, yeah, of course. I have no idea what type of personality my child's going to be.
Exactly.
Are they going to be the one that you put down, they sleep all night long, or are they going to be up every hour? And that's going to, so I know that. Like, I know that I can't predict how that's going to be. So all I can do is control the controllables.
Yes.
Right. I can discipline myself to get up earlier when I probably wouldn't want to, but I know it's going to be the most likely time that I'm going to be able to get to the gym. Like, can I get all of my another discipline that I'm trying to do right now? So this is something I've never shared on the podcast. I am just fucking freaked out about the potential damage that having tech at a very, very young age could do long term. We just have never seen it. We've never seen these devices that a 2-year-old is already staring at 2 years old.
Scares the death out of me. Scares me.
Yeah,
like, I have the conversation with my wife all the time. I'm really curious to hear where you're going with this. Go ahead.
So I know that, okay, what I don't want to get into the battle of introducing it to them, and then it becomes this thing where I gotta fight and take it back, and I've gone too far. So I've got to think of ways. How do I implement in my life so he doesn't even see me doing that? So I've told Katrina, like, hey, I'm probably going to start coming home from work about an hour or 2 hours later, because the way we work right now, both her and I work a lot. And so many times we'll be sitting next to each other in bed and working on our laptops, or we come home and we work together some more for 2 or 3 hours after I leave Mind Pump. Mm-hmm. But I know that I don't want my child to see that, because if he sees mom and dad doing that all the time, then it looks normal. It looks normal. Mom and dad are staring at a screen for 2-3 hours at a time. So baby should do this also. Like, so I'm disciplining myself now to, okay, any computer, phone work, whatever I need to do regarding tech shit, I want to leave at work. And so if that means I got to extend work an extra 2 hours, but become more disciplined about compartmentalizing all of it in that time frame versus bringing it home like I have the luxury to do now, I won't do that anymore. And I'm already starting that process. And I'm already starting when I get home to actually take my phone and go, put it away in my room, so I don't even have that distraction of wanting to grab it. Yeah. Because if I haven't disciplined myself to start doing all these things, I know damn well what's going to happen when that baby comes is I won't be prepared. I won't be prepared to handle all that shit, and what I'm not prepared for, because I couldn't prepare for, because I don't know what the fuck it is, right? So I can only control the controllables, and I know that those are some of the areas that, okay, I've got to start putting these disciplines in and habits of, I can just go to the gym 6 o'clock in the morning, get my swim in, steam, shower, get to work, do my thing, stay at work for an extra hour or two, make sure I handle all stuff that I need to do, email, social media, answering questions, whatever it may be, shuts down at 5 o'clock. I'm completely present with my child, completely present with my partner, and we are spending, the next 5 hours together, reading, playing, connecting.
Yeah. So I think this is a great answer, not only for the answer that you've given, and I want to implant this in your head while you're still talking, is because I think that it's not only a great answer for that, it's for the rest of your life. Like, no matter what you're doing, if you focus on the controllables, as you say, then I think you're definitely going to be able to set yourself up for success a lot more in your life than like freaking out about what you can't control. And then another important thing you said was essentially leadership, right? If you can't expect your kid or anybody else in your life that you're trying to lead to, be led by somebody that's doing it themselves, it's extremely contradictory. So I love your answer there, but I also think it goes outside the scope of even parenting.
Oh, it's business, bro. I mean, the reason why I'm not afraid of that, it's like the same principles apply to being very successful in business. If you are going to have a staff of 10 or more people and you're going to move this massive ship in a direction, you've got to be fucking prepared. You've got to be prepared, and you've got to be a leader, and there's so many things that you have to do for that to work. So those same things I know will apply. And for me, what I was always scared of and nervous, I shouldn't say nervous, but what I was reluctant to have a kid any earlier was that I still had so much drive and focus in that, and that was a main driver for me, was to reach this financial pinnacle in my life. And I probably had to do that first before I would have ever been comfortable with it, because I know the commitment level it takes to build something of that scale. And I knew that if I'm going to do that, I can't do that at the same time of being at that level of a father. I really think something's got to give. And so I wanted to get to a place where I felt comfortable with the things that I could have, the things I could provide for my family. I'd fulfilled that desire of building something that I knew would take a ridiculous amount of commitment and sacrifice to build. And I found myself in a place where I met 3 other men that were at very similar places in their lives and also had all the right skill sets to actually help me do this, because I could never do what we've done in Mind Pump by myself. There's no fucking way.
Yeah, that's such an important point too, though. I mean, honestly, like, it's so cool that you've been able to connect with people like that, and you guys are able to work with each other so well. And I'm sure it has a plethora of its times where it's been really tough, obviously, but to be able to come together and build something that massive and that incredible as a team is, to me, a lot more fulfilling. Like, having the emotions of success and everything that comes along with that. Like you were saying, you wanted to build this empire, essentially. You wanted to have all these gains, and that's why you had a kid, not until you were in your late 30s, right? So, but to do all that by yourself is one thing, but I think it's a totally different thing to be able to experience that, grow, sacrifice, have all these downtimes and uptimes with all these people. So not only your family, but these guys that you've done it with as well, to be able to share that, to share those successes, is, to me, something much more preferable than doing it by myself.
Yeah, no, I mean, 100%. The personal growth that I think we've all had in the last, I think if you were to interview every single one of us individually and ask them, give me the block of 5 years where you've had the most growth ever, for sure, I think all of us would say the last 5 years, because of pushing and stretching each other to grow and be better. It's actually made an incredible fun ride this entire time, and it still going. It's like it's just as fun today. I was just telling W today, I'm having more fun today than I did at the very beginning. Because at the beginning of any venture that you do, I mean, you wouldn't start it if you weren't excited about it, right? You're an asshole if you start something not excited about doing it. So everybody's excited at the beginning, but sooner or later the honeymoon phase fades off.
It does.
And that's really what makes or breaks a lot of people that actually make it, is many people don't make it beyond that 2-3 year period. I mean, you're in a really unique place right now, and it's a fucking cool place to be, but it's also a very challenging place to be, because you're challenged to, like, hey, man, I fucking have really dedicated a lot of time and effort into, if you've put out episode every single week for a year and to grow this thing, and you have to be asking yourself, like, okay, when's this thing really going to pay me off for the amount of effort that I'm putting towards it? And, it takes a long time. It really does. Everybody thinks that Mind Pump kind of happened overnight. It's like, fuck no. I mean, if you had followed me, I don't know how long you followed me on Instagram, but if you follow me all the way back to when I turned it on with the intention of building. I mean, we didn't know it was going to be called Mind Pump and it was going to look like this. And I meet Sal, Doug, and Justin, but I turned on the Instagram with the intentions of building a social media, a business that was built from social media. And so it was, and along the way for me being in fitness, it was a really an easy thing for me to see when I started to look and follow all the other fitness accounts and I saw the content and the information that people were providing. It was like, oh man, this is going to be really easy. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's not a lot of people providing really solid information. Now there is some for sure, but they're not the most popular ones.
Yeah, and not like in a manner that people can actually consume it without being bored to death, like you're reading a science book. That's why I was like going back, like relating to your stories. What encapsulated me initially was the fact that I wasn't bored to death. Like, no shit. Like, I was getting super good information, and I was getting somebody who was clearly okay with being them. Like, we were talking about your authenticity, but you're also delivering this information to me in a sense of where I could understand it, having, like, the saying of you can explain something to anybody if you explain it to them, like a fifth grader or whatever. So if I don't know the information you're telling me, I'm by default going to have a harder time understanding it. So if you can deliver that to me in a way that my brain receives it quite easily and quickly, then I'm going to be, to me, like, and that's why I followed you. I'm like, this is the third time now I'm understanding really the psychology behind it is because of that reason exactly.
Oh, it's like, duh. I mean, to Justin, Sal, and I, it was like, duh. Yeah. I mean, we've been training people for so long. I mean, all the information that I've got in my head from all the years of experience and books I've read related to health and fitness, like, I don't regurgitate that shit to my clients. Like, no. I figured out, and it took me a while to figure this out, that it didn't even matter how smart I was. If I couldn't get my clients to adhere to anything I'm telling them, what the fuck does it matter?
Yeah.
So
no, it doesn't.
Communication became really important on how do I deliver a message that gets this person to follow the things I need them to follow so they can then see the benefits and feel the benefits of what I'm trying to communicate to them, but they have no clue because they're just they're unconsciously aware. They don't understand. They don't know yet. And that's most people. That's most people that we've been training our whole life. When we get in this space, I drop into Instagram, I follow all these fitness accounts, and I'm like, oh shit, this is the opposite of everything I talk to my clients about. It's like they're feeding into the motivational hype bullshit. They're feeding into your insecurities by the quick weight loss challenges. There's just, it's all this hype and bullshit. I thought, oh, wow, this is cool. All I'm going to have to do is come in here and actually tell the truth. And it might take me longer to build some traction, but once enough people start listening to some of the advice and especially when it's counter what's popular, you start going like, hey, there's some people that are presenting some information that is kind of the opposite of everything what everybody else is touting right now. And it's funny because everybody I know that's listening to these guys, they're getting fucking incredible results and it's changing their life and all these positive things are happening.
And that's all that matters, right? Is the results that people get from this stuff. And I'm a huge advocate of laying that solid foundation essentially that you were describing there and being patient and not just like you're saying, showing some ass and tits and all this stuff and all that fun stuff. And you guys are putting that good information, laying out a good foundation. And you're right. Like if people get good results from the information that you're putting out, it's impossible for that not to spread and become a huge thing eventually. But I actually did want to get back to you said it took you, about 5 to 6 years to build all this stuff up. And I know your guys' education goes probably over 10 years back, if not, closer to 15 years. So I kind of wanted to like bring that to light for people listening that you didn't just learn all this right now. And I kind of want to couple that, if you bear with me for 1 second, too, with kind of your upbringing. You're saying that your parents were like hustling to work all the time and you were raising your kids, or your siblings as kids because they were so much younger to you. And I think, number one, do you think your parents, the way they raised you and you raising your kids kind of had anything to do with your like sheer work ethic and entrepreneurial mindset now?
I would say it has everything to do with that. I mean, 100%. So my real father committed suicide when I was 7. My mom
Sorry to hear that.
remarried into an abusive relationship for the next 13 years. So I've seen both of my parents too been handcuffed for hitting each other. So they both have been hauled off for those reasons. So you could just, and then I'm no stranger to what food stamps look like. We lived in 9 different houses. blah blah blah, the long sob story of my poor life. But I never had that attitude. Like I never felt like poor me, because we had the things that we needed to. We had food, and we always had a roof over our head. So I know there's people that had it way harder than I did, but that 100% forged me into the person I am today. And that is somebody. One, I am challenged with empathy sometimes for others because of that, because I know what we persevered through. And it's also given me that when I look at obstacles in my life as an adult, I think they're so minuscule in comparison to the stuff that I went through as a kid. And so I think I went through tougher things at tougher times.
Mm-hmm.
Being smaller and in more insecure then, as a young child, this ain't shit. That's kind of how I looked at almost anything growing up.
Yeah.
Now, I also am a firm believer in your greatest strength is your greatest weakness. So that was, and Lewis Howes has a book about mask and wearing your mask for many years and not realizing it. And many people get stuck in this phase where you take something like that and you use it to drive you to be somebody who's successful, or you go the other direction and you do drugs. Like there's a 50-50 shot for somebody like me with my background. It's like, okay, this kid's either going to get addicted to drugs and head down the, fuck it, poor me type of lifestyle, or he'll choose the other path where he'll go, fuck that, I'm not going to let this hold me back, and I'm going to push harder, I'm going to make it, right? Mm-hmm. And that doesn't mean that the latter person is always all the way right either, because I was that person who, fuck it, I'm going to make it anyways. And so I drove that. Now, what drove that when I look back now was a lot of animosity that I had towards my parents for not being able to provide for me, not being able to give me the things that I wanted as a kid, and being the quote unquote poor kid, and of course dealing with all the abuse and yelling and screaming and fighting and all that bullshit. Like I for sure got older and was angry at them for putting that on me. I mean, I remember birthdays where I would get some aunts and uncles that would send, a $50 check or $100 check for my birthday. And many times I had to give that money over to my parents to pay for dinner.
Jesus.
And so shit like that.
That definitely forges you out. Absolutely.
Right. Scarred me to the point. This now explains when I talk about I've been selfish for 37 years. Well, now you kind of understand why I was selfish, right?
Yeah. And I absolutely like kind of diving into that, and I know it's not always comfortable to talk about, but I think it's interesting and very, very informational for everybody, including ourselves, when we share our own stories. So it's very therapeutic for ourselves, and then being able to share that, like somebody else listening could be like, man, I had a really fucked up childhood too, and I'm kind of being a piece of shit about it, and I'm not taking it the direction that Adam took his life. And not to compare yourself to Adam, but at the same time, like, you have the option to kind of take, the quote unquote good things away from that, or at least take it a different direction, or at least the tenacity to want to achieve and succeed and not go the way where you're just going to, drive yourself into a hole essentially. But I talk about, career transitions on here a lot. It's pretty much what I want to help people with. I did it myself, and I'm very happy with my decision. But it sounds like fitness and all of this from a childhood is kind of been there for at least, I'd say, probably closer to 20 years. How long have you been doing it, and has there ever been any kind of career transition, or has this just been your thing?
Oh, no, I've definitely had a career transition. Probably the biggest career transition was when I left fitness for about a 3-year hiatus and followed the medical marijuana industry.
Okay.
That was after 13 years in, 12 years in. It was about 12 years in or so. I was about 12 years in, 11 or 12 years in the fitness industry, working for like a big box gym, like 24 Fitness.
Yeah.
I did boot camps and other things like that too. So I've had a lot of I've always had a job and then some sort of a side hustle going on at the same time. So I've done many things, but the bulk of my career has been centered around fitness. The first big chunk of it was working for 24-hour fitness at a big gym as a manager for most of the year. So I was only a trainer for a very short window before I then was leading trainer. So from 21 all the way to 30, I was a fitness manager where I trained and developed other trainers. So that was the bulk of my career. And at one point I took a little 3-year hiatus to go start, and that was a big transition for me. So at this point in my life, I'm making six figures. I've got a 401k and benefits. I've got a savings. I've got a house. I've got my two cars. Like, and I'm spoiling the shit out of myself, loving life.
Yeah.
I'm in a good place, but I'm also in a place that I was pretty similar to that place 4 years before that too. And I remember there came a point when I was working for this company when I realized that I was no longer growing anymore. And this was a very pivotal moment in my life where I actually had this short moment in my life where I was kind of playing this victim role and I didn't know I was. I was angry that I wasn't getting promoted faster. I had big ambitions to be like a VP for that company, and I was a top performer for every year that I ever worked there. All three, Sal, Justin, and I, all own company records and sales, and still to this day for that company. And so I had worked there. At this point, I'm like, I don't know, I think 6 years in or so. And I realized that my boss is the type of boss who loves having a guy like me who's responsible for a big, large portion of his area and income because I'm constantly hitting goal and doing well.
Yeah, no shit, right? Like, God, you're the guy to have.
And it's more valuable for him to keep me in that position than it is to promote me up to an equal at his level. And I was held in that position for 4 years. So, and I kind of knew that I was there because there came a point when I was like, okay, that's where he's at, and I want to be 2 levels above that, and I want to be making X amount of money by that time. Okay, at the rate I'm going now, I've set all these records. I'm this badass. I'm the best guy in the area. There's no argument there with him or anybody. They know that, but he's not getting me promoted, and he's not getting me promoted because he's not being my cheerleader up to the VPs and the presidents and stuff like that. And so I became very frustrated and angry, not like to where anyone would ever see it or notice it, but internally, I was frustrated and mad. And I think that was the first time that I recognized that, oh, wow, I'm blaming this guy for my, lack of growth and not continuing. And at that moment I thought, well, what the fuck is to keep me from becoming as smart, as good as the CEO of this company? And at that time, the CEO was actually sending out, and this was Carl Liebert at the time, he was sending out these monthly newsletters where he would review a book that he'd been reading. I thought, okay, so this is where I'm going to start. I'm going to start reading everything our CEO is reading. And I began doing that, and I did that for, I don't know, maybe a year and a half. And I remember I started to gain all this traction of like, oh man, I was really piecing some things together on the operations of the business and just how he's viewing the company because I'm just I'm a little, sure, 6 figures, but I'm just a little guy in a $1 billion company.
Sure.
I'm nobody to these guys at this level. He doesn't get a chance to see me, but maybe once or twice a year. So it really started to give me a look at the perspective from him from running a $1 billion company, and I started to learn and grow. And I got to a point where I knew I outgrew my boss. Most of the ideas that he was putting out in the district, I know you would be getting advice from that I was already implementing into my club. And so I was like, I'm not growing and learning anymore here. And I was still chasing money at that time in my life. And an opportunity came about for me to open up 2 of the first medical marijuana clubs in San Jose. And I knew nothing about marijuana. At this time in my life, I'm actually anti-marijuana.
Okay.
Isn't that crazy? Right?
Yeah.
So
I'm like, all right.
At this point in my life, I've only tried it 2 times. Both times were miserable experiences. So I was the anti guy. But I also wasn't naive to what was happening in California. I also wasn't naive to the science and the research around the positive benefits of CBD and what they were finding. And so I was privy to all that, but I wasn't a weed guy. And then all of a sudden I get this guy who offers me a position to open up and run these clubs for him. And he slides over a piece of paper with a number written on it and tells me that's the minimum I'll make in my first year. And it was enough money that I would completely walk away from the career that I was doing, the 401k, the benefits, the name I had made for myself, and my comfort zone to go chase something and chase after money, which is really what I was going after. Because as much as I'm pro cannabis, I'm not like a fucking. I don't care that much about it. I think it's cool. I think it's positive. I think it's a better choice than a lot of other things. I think that it's helped a lot of people.
Sure, yeah.
But I'm somebody who's going to rallies and I'm trying to push that agenda that hard. I saw the business opportunity, and I thought it was a good cause, and I knew if I could get in on the front end of it that I could be very successful. So I made that transition. And when I made that transition, the shitty part was I didn't make nowhere near that number that he slid over to me.
That's fun.
That was extremely challenging for me. So
this
that's
guy,
also,
he's still alive, or like, did you kill him? Or,
he still is. We're not acquaintances anymore. We don't talk. And eventually, but it took 3 years before I was gone and away from that. But in the meantime, I had to find ways to supplement the income that I thought I was going to be making by working there. And so I had started up vending machines. I had boot camps in San Jose that were running that I had trainers that were managing and running them for me. And then I also started to teach myself how to grow. And then I became a master grower and farmer.
Okay.
So I did this while I was trying to find ways to supplement the income that I thought I was going to make. And so eventually I made the money that he had promised me, but I did it myself, and I walked away from it. And, I'd reached a point where that number that I wanted to make as a kid growing up, like I said, once I make X amount of dollars, I'm going to be so happy. Right. And there's nothing you can tell like a kid who came from what I came from that's not going to make you happy, because when you've seen and you've been trained, like I was trained as a child and seen how much not having money tore my family apart and caused fights and caused abuse and all this shit. It's like you make that connection and it solidifies the brain. So I don't even know if 40-year-old wise Adam could come back and tell 20-year-old,
probably not. I don't think so. Yeah. I don't think so.
I don't think so either. I think I had plenty of wise people probably tell me otherwise, but I was on a mission to be that successful, make that money and find that. And it was the best thing that ever happened to me, because I woke up one day and I had more money than I ever had in my life. I had all the flexibility I could possibly want. I could come and go when I wanted to. I had multiple relationships that had fallen out. I broke up with my girl at the time, and I was in the worst shape of my life. So I literally, when I looked at myself, I had reached this pinnacle that I had been chasing for so long in my life that I needed to make X amount of dollars. And when I got there, I realized, and for the first year, it was fucking fun. Who am I kidding? All the shit that I did.
Yeah.
But I mean, not long after that, I realized that it's an empty hole that I was just constantly still trying to fill. And I realized that I didn't want to do this forever. And I had positioned myself somewhere financially where I could go, okay, I'm now at a point in my life where I reached this place I thought I wanted to go, that was so important to me, realized that that's not everything. Now I have the opportunity to, okay, go find something I really, really want to do, that I fucking get up every morning. And that's really what Mind Pump is. Is I got this opportunity, and that took years to even to get to that, because the gap between when I left the cannabis industry and the actual birth of Mind Pump is about 3 years. When I made the decision, I had woken up and I was the fattest I'd ever been. All those relationships were bad, like I said. I had deep pockets, but I was unhappy as fuck. Yeah. And I was fat as fuck. It was the worst shape I've ever been in my life. And I thought, okay, this is perfect timing for me. I took a very negative situation and reframed it as a great opportunity.
That's the story of your life, though, Adam. That's like you said, your childhood was just that. And your whole entire life is you had a negative childhood, experienced everything that you did, and you are where you are now because of that. And then just in this like a micro instance, if you will, like these couple of years, you realized where you were. And then you turn that into something good. That, to me, from looking out from the inside or looking in from the outside, is pretty incredible.
It's definitely going back to like your first question was if I think that a lot of this stuff stems from my childhood. Like, yeah, I think if you learn to reframe those shitty situations as a child, reframing as an adult just is that much easier. So, and what I have found over time of being in these situations is the darker it is, the better it's actually on the other side. So that sounds fucking twisted, but that's for somebody who's listening right now and is going through it and going like, okay, well, my situation's worse, or like, okay, I believe that you may be in something fucking way darker than I've ever been, because I know there's people that have been through way, way deeper shit than I went through. So I know that. But what I can tell you in my experience, because I've been in some pretty deep shit myself, and everything across that spectrum, is that the things that are just kind of rough, it's when you make it through, and you get through it and you get to the other side, it's pretty good on the other side. The shit that is fucking just would break most people, that you get back up and you get back up and you get through it and you push through and you make it, man, those are the most rewarding. Absolutely. Those are the best times. So if you can learn to, when these moments happen, or these seasons, my mom always talks about seasons of our life, when these seasons come, when you get into these new seasons, if you can just look at it and reframe it in a different way, like, oh, that means I have this incredible opportunity to turn this. So for me, it was, okay, all these bad things, I've gotten in the worst shape of my life. Now, as a trainer, I had never seen myself sub 9% body fat. So 9% body fat was the lowest I've ever been tested at. I've never seen higher than that. And I'm at this point in my life, I'm 30 years old, and I'm the fattest I've ever been. I've never tested at 20% body fat before. And I go, okay, I'm going to turn on my Instagram, and the way I'm going to attract eyes to me is I'm going to show them my transformation.
Sure.
And I'm going to take myself from the worst shape I've been in my life, and I'm announcing that I'm going to the best shape of my life, which would be anything sub 9% for me. So that was the goal. Go from 20 to sub 9%, document the journey, tell everybody my truths as I'm going through it. Okay. And that's exactly how I started Instagram, was getting on there and sharing that. And it was a little by little, people were starting to pay attention. And I just grew and grew from there. And that was what gave the initial traction for us. When we finally make it, about a year and a half later, I meet Sal, Justin, and Doug. And that's when we all get together and we decide to create Mind Pump. And we use the audience that I had kind of originally grew on my Instagram page to be the first, because to be honest with you, there was probably only a few hundred people out of the 10,000 or so that I had that came over to actually listen to the podcast. You yourself or somebody who came on.
I know how it is. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I know how it is as a fellow podcaster. I know how that can be too, is what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You think you would get this great, if you haven't done this yet already, I'm sure you will eventually have somebody who, I remember the first time. So my buddy who had the biggest Instagram fame at the time was Ben Zorn from The Bachelor. And he had like 250,000 followers. And he was one of the first guests ever to come on the show way back in like the first 200 episodes.
Yeah.
And we were so excited he was coming on the show, because we thought, oh my God, he's going to come on the show and we're going to get fucking information that we provide. Like, oh my God, we're like, it's so great. And I remember we were like watching the fucking Libsyn all day long, like watching the numbers and like, and there was like nothing. We got nothing from what the fuck? Yeah. So
dude, it's so hard. It's so funny. If I could stop for 1 second, like anybody listening, like I just want to reiterate, I have been doing it over a year and I had the same exact experience. I've had people all the way up in the hundreds of thousands, even 1 million. And it's just like, there's barely any traction. And you get to that point where you get past that honeymoon phase, and I'm like, holy crap! Like, if I'm not at work or if I'm not with my family, I'm fucking doing this right here for a year. Like, that's a lot of time. Like, I don't think people like see me on my stories and shit like that, but I don't think people really wrap their heads around like how much time this actually takes. So to hear you say, you went through the same exact thing now, but now, all these years later, 5 years later, you guys do have that success, but you're able to get through what you're describing to me right now.
Yeah, and this is the hardest time. The hardest time when you're building a business or building a network of people like on your podcast is going to be those first couple of years. It's because it's not going to. You're going to be constantly investing in it. It's not going to pay back or anything like that. Which it's important, and Doug always talks about labor of love. Like, it's so important that you have a deeper why or meaning to why you do it, because there's going to be
absolutely right.
So, because if you're like calculating on, well, is it valuable for my time? I spend this much time on that, and I could be doing this. This pays me this much. If like you're thinking like that already, it's like, oh, okay, it's going to be a lost cause, because this was something that when we all did it in the early years, we had. Sal and Doug had already created Maps Anabolic, so we had something to monetize and sell right up the gates, and we didn't. We did it for over a year. and we had done well over 100 something podcasts. I think we were at 150 or 190 when we finally released the program, but we had it ready to sell the whole time. We wanted to get to a point where we felt that we had provided so much value for our audience that it didn't matter what it was we're selling. They would want to buy just out of support because they feel like we've added that much value to their life.
That's such a great point. That's such a great point.
We still revisit it today. That's the hardest thing, right? So it's real easy for people. I see this in our space too a lot. Have a lot of success. Maybe they're having the same type of success financially as a business as we are right now, and now they're out, celebrating and fucking buying all these badass whips that they're sharing on Instagram, and all the money is going into their pockets versus back into reinvesting in the company. And so we're all old guys, so none of us think like that. We go, okay, this is awesome. Sure, the company's starting to increase revenue and things are going good, but how can we continue how do we give to people even more? How do we give more free content and more value to them? We've already proven that we're giving so much that people are already wanting to buy some of our programs here and there. But what happens when we pour more back into it? And so, every time you do that, it really does. It does end up eventually paying off in the long run. But you're always revisiting the reason why you got into it and why you did it. We got into it to do exactly that. And so it gets really easy to be distracted by all the things that could make money. Like, we get opportunities all the time to do things, and it sounds exciting at first, but it's like the thing that always reminds us is like, okay, which one of these aligns the most with our overall mission, which would to fundamentally change this space? And is that something that necessarily is doing that? Okay, well, if it's not, and we can do something else that is aligned with it, even if it doesn't pay us money, we know that in the long run, that's what's healthiest for the business, right?
Yeah, you absolutely have to think about that. And the way I've kind of had the discussion with myself and even a few other people that are closer in my life that have been frustrated with similar but different things is, if at a very bare minimum level, the only kind of value that I get from this, like if I'm not getting paid, is that I have learned so much in so many conversations. I mean, I'm like not just listening to the podcast. I'm like, think about any podcast anyone's ever listened to in their life. Think about actually having the opportunity to be in that room and actually engage with those people. Like, I can think of a million podcasts that I've listened to. So I'm actually getting to do that. So at a bare minimum, I'm walking away from this. If I don't get paid a cent after doing this for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 years, like the sheer volume of information is overwhelming that you can get from that. So I would highly encourage anybody that's doing anything similar like this, like trying to deliver value and helping other people, because that's what you guys are huge on too. That's like what you guys do, is help other people in your realm. So I'm trying to do that as well. And I think if you approach it from that mindset where you're going to walk away with all that information, like I was saying earlier, like for you, it can be so therapeutic, like writing a blog, and you and I talking just challenges why I feel the way I feel about what I'm talking about or what you're talking about. So all of these things are like bare minimum, which is not to take away from it. They're super important. But what I am saying is that if you're doing something for quote unquote free, it's not like you're gaining so much value out of yourself. So I would highly encourage, if anybody feels stuck, kind of like how I've felt a million times in the last year, just to think about it that way. And for me, that's what is probably one of the biggest things that's kept me going.
Right. I agree.
Yeah, man. We went a little bit over, but I couldn't get enough of hearing kind of like your whole background and how it tied into what you're doing right now. And it's very, very interesting and very inspirational. So I'm very thankful of your time. Thanks so much, Adam.
No, man, I am actually it was really cool to talk to you because of how you came on. I had no idea. And that's it's great feedback.
Sure.
Because it's something that it's tough for me to gauge that. I mean, sure, I can gauge by views and things like that, but I always wonder if people are feeling that. So for someone like you to have came on and kind of found Mind Pump through those Q&As, that makes me really happy, dude. That makes me really happy that I was able to reach somebody like that, and that you were actually a fellow podcaster and you're at where you're at right now. Like that's rad,
awesome. Yeah, easy. And feedback is good. It's like one of the things I don't get that much, but I don't know, maybe throw in like in the midst of all the questions, throw one of those polls out there, be like, I don't know, say something, make something up there where you can actually get a metric from the people that are actually doing it. Because if you put it at the end of all those stories, you know that the person that gets through 100 stories is more willing to click yes or no than the person that if you put it at the beginning of your story. So I don't know, maybe something like that. But
well, I mean, you're already enough for me. I can see the views and how much they're at their highest when I do those. So I add the most people. So obviously and I can see the share, so I can track all that.
Okay.
But the first person to give me like a testimonial from like, oh, I came on because of that, and that's what's kind of hooked you into figuring out probably who I was or what I was doing.
100%.
Yeah, no, that's rad. That's really cool. That's great feedback. So I appreciate that.
So Adam, where can people find you if they don't already know you? Because I would highly suggest that they do get to know you.
Mind Pump Adam is the best place to probably figure out who I am via Instagram. And my co-hosts are Mind Pump Justin, Mind Pump Sal, and then the producers Mind Pump Doug. We're most active probably on our Instagram, although we're on Facebook, we're on YouTube, we're on all the major platforms. And then, of course, our iTunes, our big, I'd say, pull or draw to our company is our podcast. So we built the business around the podcast originally. That's on every major platform that has podcasts. And all you have to do is search Mind Pump. And we're a health and fitness podcast. We have a lot of free content. So normally if I have somebody who's even considering like that, I'd normally recommend before you even purchase to go to mindpumpfree.com and read all the free stuff we have. The website, the new website will be up and live by tomorrow, I believe, or the next day. And so it's going to be beautiful and very user friendly for somebody as far as finding all the blogs. I mean, Sal's written like over 150 blogs that are out there and free guides. And we have a ton of free good content for people to help them learn. So take advantage of that first.
Awesome. Adam, thank you so much. And we'll see you later, man.
All right, dude.